Welcome back, everyone. Dustin here again, Average Guy Hi-Fi. I've got another subwoofer review, but this is one that's kind of near and dear to my heart. This was a subwoofer that I remember back in the day. I was like trying to save up and buy my kind of dream system at the time, and I found a deal of these subwoofers. This right here is the Polk PSW505 subwoofer. It is a 12-inch slot-ported, rear slot-ported subwoofer, so the slot's right here. But again, back in the day when I was building my little setup, I was living in a little apartment and I wanted something that sounded really good and not to have too much crazy bass going on. And I picked up a pair of these when they went on sale to go with some Definitive Technology. It was only a 5.1, kind of like I'm still running out there, but it was a Definitive Technology CLR 2002, and then it had the studio. I had 4 of the Studio Monitor 450s. And then it was actually a 5.2 because I had 2 of these. So I did a lot of research before I ended up buying them. And when they go on sale, the performance of some of these Polk subwoofers and some of these Klipsch subwoofers are really hard to beat. Obviously, you have to have reasonable expectations when it comes to these things. And if you post online, hey, I picked up a Polk PSW505, there's going to be people out there be like, you should have bought a rhythmic, or you should have bought an SVS. We're talking about 2 different categories, and if you kind of go in it with normal expectations, I say normal because I'm so into home audio that it seems like our expectations have just got too crazy. Every time somebody comes in the forums asking for advice, they go from like an 8-inch Definitive Technology subwoofer to like 2 18s. You know, it's just crazy how much people's advice will skew some things, I would say, along those lines. But if you're kind of just looking to add a lot more bass to your system but not get really down to the super deep stuff, then something like this or that Klipsch 12-inch subwoofer that I've reviewed, you know, something like those type of things will get most people happy. But when you're comparing them online, it's real easy for people just to take your $400 budget and turn it into a $4,000 budget. It's easy to spend other people's money, right? So anyway, back to my little story. I picked up a pair of these along with those Definitive Technology speakers, got them set up. It was about a 16 by 15 foot room, and a pair of these things tuned correctly with those Definitive Technology was just a very, very good sounding system. It's like one of those little systems where I didn't have a whole ton of money. I bought everything on sale. Knowing me, I probably picked up those Definitive Technology speakers on the used market. So, and I think at the time I ended up grabbing these for about $250. The MSRP on this subwoofer is $589. At that point, it starts making a little bit less sense. But when they would go on sale like they normally would, at that price point, they're very, very hard to beat. Then you're kind of dealing with some of those Klipsch subwoofers, those big subwoofers, kind of what people consider entry level when it comes to the grand scheme of overall home theater subwoofers. But they perform very well. I was super happy with them. So I'd gotten about 4 requests to review this thing, and one popped up here local to me. I ended up picking it up for $160, which is not a bad deal. They generally sell for that $200 to $150 range on the secondhand market, so I was happy with the deal that I got. But some of the specs, again, it is a 12-inch. This is a 12-inch woofer. It has a very large surround. It's actually got a pretty menacing look to it, so I'll kind of show you a close-up. It's got a really cool look to it. I like that large surround on it. And it's actually in a pretty compact box. The dimensions are, it's about 15 inches wide by about 16 inches tall, and then about 18 inches deep. So it's much more compact than some of the other subwoofers that I've been reviewing. It's that Rhythmic, you know, that thing was just awesome. I've got an SBS SB16 Ultra that I need to review. But those things are so heavy for me to be carrying in and out of my little apartment here that it's refreshing to see something this size and this weight. This one only weighs about 41 pounds. That Rhythmic weighed about 100, and that SB Ultra weighs about 120 from what I've been reading. So, and it feels every bit of that. So this subwoofer comes with a 300 watt RMS amplifier. It's got kind of your normal stuff. It's got the speakers in, speaker out, has the auto on, standby, off, phase control, has volume control, then it has the low pass filter on it as well too. So, and then line in, left and right filtered, and then LFE in unfiltered. So those are all the connections on the back of it. Polk claims that it goes down to about 28 hertz. Just my personal experience with it, it starts to get when it starts hitting those really deep notes at decent volumes, you start getting some port chuffing in the back of it. And again, I think it probably has to do with that slot port. that's probably the reason. I like these type of subwoofers, but I was finding a little bit of an issue getting this thing positioned correctly, having that port in the back. I was having to move it around from my normal spot. All subwoofers should be put in the spot that subwoofer wants to go. So sometimes a rhythmic subwoofer moved out of place and put another subwoofer in, that's not the best spot for this subwoofer. So you kind of want to move it around, and even a couple inches can make a pretty big difference at main listening position. So make sure, I think that's one thing that people just don't fully understand out there, and I want to help not go out and just spend more money and throw money at it, but make sure that you get the equipment that you have in your place right now. Make sure the subwoofer's in the best position. Make sure that the tweeters are angled towards the ears, kind of at the same height. They can be up, but as long as they're angled down so that signal has a direct shot, then just spend that extra time making sure that the center channel, the subwoofer, the towers, all that stuff's positioned correctly. Because I've gone under some people's houses and they'll have $10,000 worth of gear, but you can tell instantly that it's not set up properly. So for those out there looking for better sound in your home theater room, it might be better just for you to spend a little bit of time learning a little bit about setup and things like that. And there's tons of forums on there for setting up little 5.1, 9.2, 9.2, you know, like on and on, all the different configurations out there for home theater. So that's one piece of advice. I would just make sure that you spend a little bit of time there instead of just throwing money at it, because you could put a $3,000 subwoofer in a null and it's going to have $300 subwoofer performance a lot of times. So work on that a little bit. That would be my one piece of advice here. So we're going to pop over there. I'm going to put on a movie that will just test this thing out, and we'll show you guys the excursion of it. I'm having a hard time with my microphone and it distorting during big bass scenes and things like that. So I'll put the microphone kind of away from the main listening position a little bit farther, just so I get less turbulence and you guys can hear a little bit more. And again, this is not how the subwoofer sounds in person. You want to hear these things in person if all possible, but I want to do these videos to give you guys a little bit of a visual of these speakers in action instead of just me sitting in this room rambling on about it. I think that would get old real quick. So let's pop over there, show you guys a movie in 4K, and then we'll jump back over here and I'll give you guys the average guy hi-fi impressions. Okay, I hope you guys enjoyed that short demo. Overlord's just one of those movies that if you want like an LFE roller coaster, it's a really good one. There's some really deep explosions in those plane scenes where they're coming in. Pretty disturbing movie, but if you look past that and just go after I kind of like that type of stuff. I don't know, for whatever reason, I was raised by parents that were into horror movies and things like that, so that stuff doesn't faze me, but really the sound, it's the LFE, the impact. There's tons of that chest type deep bass that you get, so own that one if you have like a little bit of a 4K collection you like showing off to the friends. It's a good one. So I realized I forgot to show you guys the speaker grill last time, so just give you guys a close up there. And again, I buy the stuff used. I'm trying to be honest as I can with stuff. It's got a little bit of a stain on there. I'll get that cleaned off, I think, before the next owner. Nice quality grill cover. I actually like grills that have the plastic, because you could just put these in some like warm soapy water, like with some dish soap and a light brush, and kind of scrub them up, and they really look brand new again once you get them all dried out. So whenever they have this, just be careful, because there is adhesive kind of gluing it onto the plastic. So I haven't had any come off, but I'd imagine if you're using the wrong kind of soap, sometimes that can happen. So again, that little demo over there, this subwoofer really kind of filled into a tough spot. I mean, it's sandwiched between some SVS subwoofers, it's sandwiched between that rhythmic subwoofer. So I'm using my expectations, just overall experience. You know, stacking this up against that 15-inch rhythmic that I just reviewed and sold is just not a fair comparison. They're double the price. The rhythmic's more than double the price of this subwoofer. But if you get this one on sale around $250, that kind of levels the playing field a little bit. So now we're on to the average guy hi-fi review section of the video here. So we go off of 5 categories. We go off of quality. When it comes to bass, we go off bass response, how it sounded in my room. We go off the MSRP value, kind of where it stacked up to the competition at MSRP. We also go off the aesthetics, how it looked in my room, and then we go off my price paid. And then we average those 5 categories out. Each category is worth 10 points, 10 being the best, and then we give you guys the average guy hi-fi score. So we'll just jump right into it from a quality perspective. I gave it an 8 out of 10. I was really impressed by just how stout the driver feels. Like I mentioned, that big kind of rubber foam surround that this thing has kind of gives it like a menacing look to it. But I think it's just a long Excursion 12-inch woofer, so it's just designed to take that 300 watts RMS and have good Excursion, which makes it cover a big band of the frequency responses down to about 30 hertz. At that point in time, the rear port starts making a little bit of noise. But from a just overall quality perspective, cabinet's nice and sturdy, nice amplifier, no issues there. The way that they attach the coating on the box itself seems like it's done to very high standards. So 8 out of 10 when it comes to a quality. Sound, I gave it a 7.5 out of 10. This subwoofer, just with all the different subwoofers I've owned over the years, I was having a little bit of a hard time kind of taming its boominess. You know, with Odyssey and everything, the settings didn't quite get it right, so I had to make some tweaking. I had to move it around a little bit, but eventually I did get most of the boominess to go away. I say most because, again, when you're comparing it against a 15-inch servo subwoofer like that rhythmic, I mean, there's from a bass response perspective and a controlled non-boominess, that is like the least boomy subwoofer I've ever heard. And then comparing it to this one, which actually has some boominess, is a little bit of a tough challenge there. But I spent some time getting it positioned correctly, making sure the settings were right, all of that type of stuff. I gave it a 7.5 out of 10. When it comes to the bass response, it's not the greatest score I've ever given, but it was also due to the fact that under high strain, when that woofer is really going crazy, you could actually hear some port chuffing, and I think it has to do with the shape of that port and everything. So a little bit of a detractor there, because that can be, if any of you that have done that and you've overstrained a subwoofer and you've heard that thing just kind of flapping around, it's not a good sound, doesn't sound good in your movies and everything like that. So 7.5 when it comes out of the bass response. When it comes to the MSRP value, I gave it a 7. At $589, this was, when it came out, a very good subwoofer. But at $589, you start getting into that shoe range, you know, where you could pick up one of their entry-level subwoofers that would easily outperform this subwoofer. And at the time, SVS had some subwoofers as well when this one was first launched, like the NSD-12. There was a couple other ones that were around that $500, $600 range that would just totally beat this thing in just about every aspect you can imagine. So that had to be factored in. I gave it a 7 out of 10 when it comes to the MSRP value. Still a good value, but definitely I think that with those other manufacturers and how high quality bass that they would produce, this thing was more geared towards, like Costco right now, it has a very nice entry-level clip subwoofer, not very nice, but something that would get most people by. And that's kind of where these things ended up. When they were closing them out for that $300, $250 range, then that makes this subwoofer much a better of a purchase. So 7 out of 10 when it comes to MSRP. When it comes to the aesthetics, I gave it an 8.5. I really like the look, you know, like I mentioned in my previous Polk videos, when it comes to the silver and black, I think that's a nice kind of modern style to it. But again, I keep going back to this really kind of heavy-duty foam surround. I like the looks of it. It makes this thing look much beefier than it really is. And from I like the size. The size of this compared to that rhythmic is much smaller, so it's easier to kind of tuck away. It's lighter weight. It's around 40 pounds, so you can kind of move it in and out a little bit easier. So when it comes to the looks, I gave it an 8.5 out of 10. Very good score there. When it comes to my price paid, I gave it a 7.5 out of 10. Like I mentioned earlier in the video, these subwoofers on the secondhand market generally pop up around that $200 to $150 range. Me picking this one up for $160 is a great deal. If you're not in there like me, that's always constantly looking at values of used subwoofers in my local market, this would be a very good pickup for you. It's even worth a couple $100 if you find one on the used market. Just make sure that you test it. All the research that I was doing for this subwoofer, I was reading about some plate amp issues, some static, those type of things. Didn't have any problems with this subwoofer. And again, I think those forums kind of magnify, you know, like 6 people that have bad experiences compared to the 1,200 people that had good experiences, you know, like those type of numbers. So you have to kind of take that into consideration as well, too, when you're reading those forums. But my price paid, 7.5 out of 10. $160 is a fair deal for the subwoofer. I'm pretty sure I can get my money right back out of it, so no worries there. So what's that average out to? Averages out to 38.5, which is 77% average guy HiFi score. So, not the highest performing subwoofer of all time, but again, this one's very near and dear to my heart because this was one of the subwoofers that I plunked down my hard-earned money back in the day and purchased. I purchased a pair of duals, ran them with that Definitive Technology set for about a year or so, and was totally happy with them. So you guys that own this subwoofer out there, it's a very good performing subwoofer as long as you're making it, as long as you're asking the right things of it. If it's in a very big room and you listen to things very loud, this will start to struggle at those higher volumes in the lower, especially in the lower bass regions. Like I said, I would expect it to go down to about 30 hertz in room in most smaller to mid rooms, but after that it starts really kind of coming apart there. It's not designed to go for that real deep stuff. So if you have one of these subwoofers that's in a normal size room, I'm sure you're happy with the performance. It's a good quality sub, but just know there is definitely better subwoofers out there, but I think you did pretty good, especially if you picked it up on sale. So again, that's the whole point of this channel. Try to highlight deals that are available to you, letting you know that you don't have to spend tens of thousands of dollars to get tens of thousands of dollars in performance. Some of the deals I've been getting, like you guys have been watching, have been pretty remarkable. So they're out there. I'm sure the Seattle market's probably better than some of the markets, but just keep an eye on them. Set up your alerts. You know, if you're on OfferUp, if you want a Martin Logan speaker or whatever you're looking for, go into OfferUp, put in Martin Logan and set it as a notification. That way if somebody lists something, they'll be notified, and maybe it's something that you're looking for. You know, I cannot get good deals because I have such a large thing that I'm searching for. I'm not trying to narrow it down to one specific speaker. So that's why I think it gets a little bit misinterpreted. Like, if I was looking for one thing, I wouldn't be posting this many videos. Since I have my search so wide out that I can kind of just buy whatever as long as it's a reasonable price and I feel I can get my money back out of it. That's kind of truth what's going on behind the scenes there. So again, this video kind of went a little bit longer than usual, like they always do, but I hope you guys enjoyed it. My name is Dustin, and the name of the channel is Average Guy HiFi. Thank you very much.